Thank you. Good morning. I'd like to call the Dunn County Planning Resource and Development Committee to order here on Thursday, June 18th. Thank you. It looks like all the supervisors are here for the committee. So for the call of the roll, next up, we look for the approval of the minutes from June 4th. I have a motion from Supervisor Morehouse and a second from Supervisor Bauer. I see no comments or corrections. All in favor? Aye. None opposed, it looks like. We have next up, number 4, public comments related to items on the agenda. I have 2 listed here. First one is from Mr. Bob Cook, who would like to express the town's position on modular data centers. Mr. Cook, would you like to come up? Yes, please.
You got me now? Recently, the city has changed their zoning to allow data centers now under I-4. And I'm wondering what the county's position is on data centers in general, and specifically modular data centers. What I'm afraid may happen is that the county will allow data centers, especially the modular ones, in a zoning category. And what I foresee happening is that somebody may approach and decide we want 5 data centers installed in this area. The county okays it. What's to keep them from expanding from 5 to 10 to 100? I feel that they should be put under special exemption with a limit of between 5 and 6, something like that. And I'm basing that on the size of the footprint that they would take up on the soil. And if they decide they want more than that, they have to come before the board again to grant another special exemption. That keeps it from going from 10 to 100 or whatever number. I also wanted to speak to, well, that'll be at a different time, about the no, not necessarily the comp plan, but possibly contractor storage. We have a little bit of problem that in the town, and I want to see what the county's opinion is. It's not. Okay. Is it possibly to be an agenda item in the future?
Are you going to stay around for the whole meeting?
I always do.
You'll have your answer.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much, Bob. And Jesse, about modular data centers, speaking about the agenda item. Jesse Singerhouse, thank you.
Good morning, Jesse Singerhouse, N1523 440th Street, Menominee. Again, here today is CEO Dunn Cooperative. Appreciate the continued discussion on this topic, continue to work with the county and the people have reached out with questions on this topic. A couple things I just wanted to reemphasize or just clean up a little bit from some questions I received. Just to clarify, this project is not related to the Balloonist project at all. This is a separate company. It's not in the city of Menominee. This is out in a rural area that we were approached by this company, so it's not affiliated with that at all. Second, we kind of got the questions about, is this different than any other business project that's approached you and how do you work with it? And it's absolutely not. We work with it the same way as we would people expanding a dairy farm, people building a home, people building a hotel, anything like that that's approached to us over the years. We work with it to evaluate their energy needs. It's very common they reach out to the utility first to see what the electrical infrastructure is in that area. Is there enough to supply the project that they need, or can it be built to supply the project they need, and what is that cost that they would have to pay? So it's a very common thing for them to reach out to the utility first, and we'll continue to work with that. The other point, the thing that limits growth and projects like this is the size of the infrastructure in the rural area. There's a limiting factor there based on the size of the substations, transmission lines and things. So you're not going to see the big projects like were proposed in the city out in the rural area with existing infrastructure as it is. That'd be a major, major investment. They're going to be located closer to the larger transmission lines to see those types of large projects. So there is a limiting factor that we can discuss as there's more questions. Continue to be a resource for you and any other members of the community that have questions about any energy infrastructure and how this applies in the rural area. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, that was public comments related to items on the agenda. I don't think we have any public comments related to the comprehensive farmland preservation update. No? Okay. We have no public hearing. Staff reports. Register of Deeds, Heather is not here. But we have, is Heather online? Oh, okay. You had her report in your packet. And I think she let us know she wasn't going to be here too, didn't she? Yeah, I thought she did, yeah. You can save your questions for her when she gets back. 7B, Environmental Services Monthly Department Reports. Who starts?
I can start, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Carlson.
Good morning, everyone. So my report is in the packet and it's also up on the screen here. During the month of May, 5 certified survey maps were submitted to the county for review. You can see where the parcels were created. Town of Menominee led the way with 3 new parcels encompassing about 37 acres. New Haven with 3 at 14 acres, and then down the line. So 10 new parcels created for the month. In addition, 15 maps of survey came in for filing, and then we also worked on 19 public land survey system corners in the towns of Colfax, Red Cedar, Sand Creek, Sheridan, Sherman, Tainer, and Tiffany. And otherwise, it's just been business as usual. A lot of questions, a lot of speculations on land divisions and working with landowners and surveyors. So I suspect the next few months are going to be quite busy. So I don't have anything else to add unless there's any questions.
Any questions? Yes, sir. Supervisor Steyer.
Just one kind of spillover from last night. You had a question about how often the county goes through markers and things like that. What is the rotation? Is it 10 years, 20 years, 40 years?
Hmm.
I didn't want to put you on the spot last night.
Yeah, it depends. It really does.
Well, it's 2, it's just the middle of that, yeah. And I'm gonna take a separate bottle. So I can
Give me
remove
1
water
second.
and not mix it up.
All right, how much water?
So that should be 7.
So 2 ounces for every 4?
Okay, apologize for that. Somebody joined the meeting and didn't have their mic muted. Anyway, question, how often do we get to these corners? Are they on any type of a rotation? No, I mean, ideally, we would have them on a 20-year rotation and visit them. We simply don't. We don't, and that's the short and simple answer. I mean, we would need more staff. We would need, yeah, and right now, sometimes I don't want to say it's a struggle, but it's all we can do to keep ahead of the road construction projects. And then we are working township at a time. We've been working up the west side of the county. So O'Galley 2614 is done. And then you move up from there into Weston and Lucas and Stanton and Tiffany. All those townships are done. Right now we're working around the city of Menominee. There's a lot of corners in the city that, we don't consider, well, they're not they're not in a rural area, but there's a lot of surveys tied to those corners. So, and obviously if corners are in jeopardy, a landowner lets us know, we get out and work on it. But, yeah, we have monuments that have been in the ground, some of them since, the 80s that haven't been revisited. And we have to trust that they're in good shape.
Which is fine. I was just, for clarification, when you say townships are done, does that mean that you're going through all the markers in those particular
Yep.
townships?
There's roughly 133 corners per township.
Oh.
So we like to do remonumentation township at a time so we can see if patterns are developing. There were different original government surveyors working under contracts in the 1800s, and sometimes you can find a pattern. Their measurements were all long or all short, and yeah, it's nice to stay within the boundary of a township and get it completed. So.
Yeah, thank you, Supervisor Morehouse.
Yeah, Tom, would you just remind the committee how many corners there are in the county?
Yeah, there's roughly 2,800 corner positions that have monuments at plus or minus. So it's a large county with a lot of markers.
Yeah, it's not that I expected you to go through them all, not at all. I was just for clarification on how the scope of what you were able to get done with the staff that you have and
Right.
that, so.
And we also need to remember the private surveyors, when they're doing work, they are obligated to maintain these corners and go to them, visit them, take their own measurements and update the records. Wisconsin Administrative Code requires us not only to have a monument, but also a minimum of 4 witnesses to that monument, which could be iron pipe, rebar, building corners, some type of other auxiliary monument. In case that monument got destroyed or disturbed, we have references that we can measure from to replace it. Although some would argue with coordinates now and GPS equipment, these witness monuments maybe are not so essential anymore. People don't really use those, but the private surveyors are required, if they go to a corner and it is destroyed or any of the accessories, the witness monuments are destroyed or removed, they are responsible to replace the monument and those witnesses and file a new record. A lot of times they will call me and let me know, hey, can the county go out and do this? We'll put it on our schedule, we'll get it done. So we try and work with them, but ultimately it's not only the county's responsibility, but the private surveyors to maintain these corners and visit them as part of their daily work routines, or if the corners are needed for the boundary of their survey.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Tom. Who's next?
That's me. I guess kind of business as usual, perhaps I would say, from the zoning and planning world. Outside, I was just going to highlight our sanitation permits are on a 5-year trend, the highest for the month of May as we look back to the other months. So I don't know if that's a sign of what's to come, but for 33 new sanitation permits, 32 new newer replacement, that's pretty significant for the month of May. Otherwise, then I was just going to highlight the Board of Adjustment meeting that occurred on May 18th, where we did have variance request from Mike Prochnow in the town of Red Cedar, where the board did grant approval for a lot size less than 1 acre. And so that was an existing kind of development pattern that they felt was suitable to allow for that lot to be, a lot to be created that would be less than the county's minimum one acre, less than the 1 acre minimum. And then the second one was a variance, a series of 3 variances from Farmer's Store, Gilbert's of Sand Creek in the town of Sand Creek, shoreland property. It's unique. Shoreland zoning applied in a unzoned township where we had setbacks in our shoreland ordinance for roads. Future conversation with the committee, but that's just a placeholder where I will be, revisiting the shoreland ordinance with the committee and setbacks to roads in the shoreland and kind of that potential, the conflicts that we're seeing. So overall, that's my staff report for May.
Yes, thank you. Go ahead,
Just a question about the less than half acre. Is that for residential development? What is the purpose?
Correct. It was basically it's an old farmstead. The committee saw a land division related variance request for the exact
Okay.
same site. So it was just to split off that residential dwelling from that agricultural use.
I remember that one. Thank you.
Yep.
Go ahead, Dave.
The zoning shoreline permits, you had 38, 7 were single family, 19 accessory structures, were the rest just open lots then, or just,
The accessory structure ones?
you have 38 total
Yep.
permits, 7
Oh.
were single family, 19 were structures.
Yeah, so the other ones could be just towers. I think we had towers in there. Even so we track even home occupation, some other type of uses that would have been included under those permits.
Okay.
Would that be garages and storage sheds?
That would typically those would be reflected as that accessory structures.
Okay.
But fences would be another one. It's kind of a whole retaining wall, or excuse me, filling and grading, riprap projects would also be reflected in those permits that are not necessarily structures.
Okay.
Yep.
Anybody else? Thank you, Tammy. Chase.
Hey, good morning, everyone. As I give an introduction, I'm going to ask two of my staff to come up, Amanda Hanson and Janelle Newcomb, given an opportunity to highlight a couple programs that are included in the monthly report, but then also to kind of give an introduction to you all, is to see who the faces are working in our division, and then for them to get an introduction to see you as well. So if you, Janelle and Amanda, want to come up. So between Janelle and Amanda, we have 70 years of employment here for Land and Water Conservation Division here at Dunn County. And as of yesterday, Janelle's work anniversary for 46 years. So I just wanted to highlight that, but then give them an opportunity to highlight a couple of the programs that we work on. And I'd be happy to answer any questions after they're done about their content as well as anything in the report. So go ahead, Janelle.
Okay, as Chase mentioned, I've been here 46 years. 39 of the last years I spent with Land and Water Conservation. I did prepare an informational sheet on the Snowmobile Trail Aid Program. It was included in your packet. Just a little bit on the program. It's one of the many programs that we work with, and I assist Chase with administering and processing the grant-related documentation. I track the grant funding, maintain the financial records, and ensure that the required reimbursement requests and documentation are processed in a timely manner. I also review all the grooming and the non-grooming entries and attachments that are in the DNR SNARS program to make sure that they are in compliance with their rules and programs. And I maintain contact with the Dunn County Snowmobile Association for assistance with any questions that I have when I'm doing that review. Due to the short deadlines for this program to get the information entered, that is one of the most time-consuming parts of the program is the SNARS program. All entries in that program are subject to review and audit by the DNR. And if any costs are found unallowable during their audit, they are subject to repayment. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Amanda.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Amanda. I hope to be here as many years as Janelle has been. I've been here since '02. I started with Land and Water, so this is my home, so to speak. Since Janelle left off on snowmobiles, I figured that'd be a great place to pick up. I also assist with the snowmobile program in Dunn County. I work with the snowmobile bridges in particular, and I can't say thank you enough. Thank you to our private landowners, our public landowners, but also to the businesses, the safety educators, the volunteers, The riders, and of course, the Dunn County Snowmobile Association and the 14 clubs of Dunn County, who are all volunteers that make up the snowmobile trail system. Without you, we would not have the snowmobile trail system we have. So thank you. We just don't get the chance to say that. Getting back to my part in the picture, right now there are about 18 bridges in Dunn County that Dunn County insures, that technically speaking the county owns, though those bridges are paid for by the registrations and the tags that you see on the snowmobiles that are out there. There are many more bridges than that, but those are the 18 so far that we've had grant funds come through that we've assisted on either new bridges or bridge replacements. At the moment on deck, we've got Trail 11. That is a connector between Knapp and Boyceville. Right now, they're looking at 2 new bridges and a trail reroute. We've been working on this for about a couple years right now. We're still in that process of permitting. There's some grant funds that are earmarked, and hopefully soon we can get those installed. That's with the Knapp Valley Riders Club, if you're familiar with that area. On deck or coming up, we've got a couple bridges that are south of the Chippewa River. On Trail 34, and also on Corridor 33. So one's in the Rock Falls area looking at a new bridge and a reroute. The one over on 34 is looking for a bridge replacement, meaning that the bridge has failed. It can no longer be used as a public trail system. So they found an alternate way to drive around, but that bridge needs to be replaced for the safety of the riders and to keep our system together, because those corridors also connect to other parts of the county, to our adjacent counties, but make up a statewide system. So if you're an avid snowmobiler, or if you meet one, a lot of times they'll just pack a bag, throw it on the sled, and go for days. It's a great way to enjoy rural areas and the state of Wisconsin. Switching gears, the other part that I've been asked to talk about today is non-metallic mining, which is known as Chapter 20, or the Chapter 20 Ordinance of Dunn County, which came about in about 2002. I've been working on that program since 2005. We currently have 21 total permitted sites in the county. 19 of those 21 sites are active, meaning they're actively planning to mine there, or they are. There are 2 of those sites that are inactive. Last year, we had about 25 acres that were reclaimed. Those were interim reclaimed, meaning not the entire site was reclaimed, but they're being progressive. They're working towards reclamation, which is great. Last year, of the fees that came in, about $2,000 we forwarded to the DNR as part of Chapter NR 135 or State Statutes 295. The remainder Dunn County retains, which is just under $10,000, and that goes to the general fund. Overall, looking at Chapter 20, we have a few different categories. We have the sites that are currently permitted. We have the sites that were permitted, but they're closed and reclaimed, and their permits have been released. We have new applications or new permits that can come at any time. And then we also have the unpermitted, which those unpermitted may be exempt, or there may be other reasons. So with those new ones, we have applications and fees that come in, which I get assistance with Janelle on the processing of those fees and getting into the county budget. There's also a plan review, public notice, possibly a public informational meeting, depending on the location and the request, financial assurance that needs a review, and a permit decision. We also have permit modifications and permit transfers that are out there but don't happen too often, but that is a possibility. And then from there, as far as the permitted sites, we're looking at doing an annual site visit every year. We also have site visits that are requested by the operator or perhaps by complaint or an adjacent neighbor. We look at their financial assurance, and we have the annual fees for processing. So that's it. Thank you for having us this morning. Good to see you all.
Thank you. Could you stay just a moment? Supervisor Steyer might have a
Not
question.
getting off that easy. Of the 19, I think you said the active mines, what is it all? Is it all rock or limestone, or what else or is it being mined?
Looking at the active sites, you're right. You mentioned rock, you mentioned limestone. Beyond that, sand. And sand could be for building purposes, for like under a structure, but sand, another area for that is for use in agricultural buildings for bedding for cattle. I think probably the most unique one we have in the county, which is inactive at the moment, is for dimensional sandstone. So if you've driven by Mabel Tanner or things of that sort, that's actually the quarry where that sandstone came from. So it's probably the most unique of all of them.
Any other questions? Supervisor Bauer, thank you.
Thank you. On the Triple River Bike Trail, are you familiar with that one at all? Okay.
A
That's
little
me.
bit.
That's you. Okay, I'm sorry. You're gonna get to that one then?
Well, I can answer the question right now. Yep.
Right now, I think that with Pepin County maintaining that, there's no bike pass you have to run that. Are you gonna change that as the acquisition changes, or how is that gonna work?
That is all to be determined yet. Right now, just focused on acquiring the property, so that way it can stay in public, open to the public. All of that negotiation about maintenance and fees and all that is probably yet to happen. But my guess is there would be some sort of fee that would, ideally it would be a status quo, meaning Pepin County maintains it and there's a fee that's associated with that. Because it's logistically to have Dunn County operations going down there and try to maintain that trail, it just doesn't seem feasible, but that is still to be, has yet to be, confirmed, so.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Janelle and Amanda, thank you very much. Nice to see you up there. Chase, you have any more?
I have nothing else to add unless there's other questions.
Well, I have one. You just mentioned, we haven't purchased that yet, or that hasn't, I thought we had that done.
Yeah, it's been a long process. So, as you can imagine with grants, legal requirements for that, there's a lot of back and forth. So, title work, there's some things recorded on the deed of those properties because it was a formal railroad that have caused some concern for Department of Natural Resources. So yeah, it's just been a long kind of back and forth process, but Landmark Conservancy is the one kind of brokering the deal and kind of making this happen. And they've been very diligent in trying to see this through, but it has yet to occur. But I think we are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, so.
Okay, and we're talking about, I think, Bob, from basically the bridge across almost the bridge across the Chipwood down to Duran?
Correct.
That little piece, yeah. Supervisor Steyer?
So just clarifying, so Red Cedar, you have to pay to ride, but once you get to the bridge, you don't have to?
After the bridge, if you're heading towards Duran, there's no fee, so you can ride from Duran up to the trestle and then turn around and go back, but yeah.
That's crazy.
yeah.
And then Landmark Conservancy, so obviously this happened in 24, through the county board, the sale. Landmark would own the trail exclusively then, that, or no?
No, so in order to afford or to buy this property, obviously the county wasn't going to be able to do that. So neither county. So we were going to apply for a Nelson Stewardship Fund grant. Turns out we weren't necessarily eligible for that grant for this particular project. Therefore, Landmark Conservancy, which is typical of them and to play in this role, they are the ones eligible to apply for the grant. So they applied for a Stewardship Fund grant from the state. That was awarded. They'll use those funds to make the purchase. And then once that purchase is done, they will deed the property over to the respective counties. So Dunn County will actually own that corridor, that 1.5 miles. And our expense to that is likely going to be the closing costs and title fees, which is it's been estimated around $2,000. But to Supervisor Bauer's point, the next step then is after acquisition, the agreement as to how we maintain that and keep that thing in operation, so.
Yeah, I think those questions all fit in the agenda, environmental services. I'm glad you brought that up. I thought we were kind of done with that. Okay. A question here. We have operational planning exercise next, and that would be 7C. That will probably take a while. Would you object, or would anybody on the committee object if we move that down below number 8? And because we've got public here now, any objections to moving 7C to after we're completed with number 8? Okay, so we'll do that right now then. That would bring us to 7D, comprehensive plan draft adoption timeline. You may not have been expecting to have to talk so soon here. I'm sorry I didn't catch that sooner, Jenna.
Yeah, here I was trying to multitask. I first, I probably should apologize to the committee for bringing this up last night to the full county board without fully introducing this to the committee. But I just wanted to take the opportunity to kind of plug the comp plan and the timeline. As we look at statute requirements and our, the work that the consultant's doing, you start putting the timeline together. And the really big hurdle for us is a 30-day publication. And that's not a 30-day, that's the draft that we've all, the committee is going to feel comfortable with. So once we get to that point, it's got to be, active and live for public comment for 30 full days. You start working that timeline back, it gets challenging. So it's not ideal that our second reading is going to also fall the same time as your budget action in November. But I don't know if there's general thoughts, concerns with this. I feel like we've got the month of July and August built in here to hopefully get enough comments in. I've already had a couple townships reach out and asked if I would be willing to come and meet with them. So it's, we'll definitely make staff available as much as we can to get buy-in from the townships also with the comp plan. So I guess just general reaction, thoughts from the committee discussion.
Go ahead, Dave.
Thank you. The meetings that were held the first part of June you had one up here and then one with the local townships. Were those in regard to this or is that something?
No, with regard to this, correct?
How did they go? Okay.
It's a tough time, right? I feel like there's never a good time, right? But June, holidays, school's just getting out, pretty poor, yeah. But again, I think that's, we brainstormed ideas of trying to attend maybe the county fair and have a booth at the county fair. Well, then I start looking at the schedule and I got 3 staff who want that week off. So it's trying to figure out staffing too. So I welcome ideas and how we can at least get this out in front of the public as much as possible. Again, I think utilizing the libraries to have a booth at them is going to be important. So ultimately, this, the public hearing will be in front of this committee. And again, challenge me to whatever it's going to make you guys feel comfortable to approve the version that comes before you.
Is there an opportunity to present to the town boards that in a setting where you could get at a lot of the people that are involved with the decision making?
That's a good question. I'm trying to think of when's the next quarterly towns meeting? We met April, May, June, July, August. We'll be in August, I think. So that's a very good point. I will see if I can get, I usually get 5 minutes in front of them. So we'll see if I can get maybe 10 minutes in front of that town group.
Tammy, I thought you'd actually communicated with each of the townships already.
I have, yep. It's been outreach to the townships yeah, that's correct.
And you've had focus groups with
We've had focus
different
groups, yeah.
groups. And specific surveys to landowners, surveys to the general public. There's been a whole list of things they tried, and I know you had an open house at which township did I go down to?
You went to Springbrook.
Springbrook. We had one person and her son come in the whole 2 hours there.
O'Galley?
The O'Galley town board was there. Very good conversation with them. And that's, I was, of the meetings that we've had, those who have attended I offered an opportunity for us to have very in-depth conversation. So I do appreciate that part of it.
And even at Springbrook, we had a town sheriff from a different township come in and had great conversation.
Mhm.
So there's been a great deal. It's just so difficult to communicate. But good ideas. Keep trying. Uh, Diane?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If anybody is concerned about public input, this process has been going on for a year. There have been multiple opportunities for people to provide feedback, to provide review, to offer information. So I think Tammy and her staff and Regional Plan have done a very good job of getting input as much as is possible to get people out to offer observations and comments.
And it was a chuckle because you had to get after a member of our committee's particular township to respond. So that's good. So comprehensive plan adoption timeline update, if you can live with that, I mean, all of a sudden you've got modular data centers coming at you and all kinds of other things. Got to prioritize.
Yeah, and this has to be done, right? This has to be done by the end of the year. So that's what makes me nervous of getting into November, because we don't have a county board meeting in December. Unless this committee or the whole county board is going to voluntarily offer another meeting, a special meeting to take up an agenda item. I would hope to avoid that. But yes, this is uncomfortably pushing the timeline for me. I have to be honest. So, but it is what it is.
So would you like a little direction from us saying this is your priority?
Well, sure. This is our priority.
Okay. Yeah, she
Yeah.
knows that, but you've got so many things on your plate.
Oh, that's
If
fair.
you've got to make a decision sometimes, maybe this is it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Supervisor Steyer.
Thank you. We go through not to this extent, but our CAFO permit renewal every 5 years, and it's a year and a half process before permit goes in, just getting ready, and then you have the submittal to the public and all that stuff that goes with it. So I understand what you're saying. You have to have your ducks in a row when you get to this point that everything's ready to go ahead, and you can't have any hiccups. So if there's anything that we can do to help you out, let us know. But
Yeah, I think
I have no problem with what you're doing, so.
perfect. Just get ready for more in-depth meetings in June, July and August.
Okay, that was 7D.
Mike, real quick,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
is there something in
Is-
here that you've been getting pushback on that you're worried that it won't get passed in the timeline?
It's the hot topics right now, right? So the comprehensive plan defines the Dunn County's vision, right? Where do we see growth happening? What's going to influence that growth? So have we captured our vision good enough for the next 10 to 20 years? And if it doesn't align with certain agendas or what certain individuals think it should be, then that could be our hurdle, right? What is that, what do those revisions look like? What would, and again, that absolute no's, but if there's absolute no's, what could that look like if we start changing our plan? And the mapping, right? So we project future land use maps, and that's where it really starts getting challenging, is if we end up amending maps, later on in the process.
Yeah, good
Good
question.
question, yep.
Anything else? Okay, and just a comment that Diane had made earlier, that you guys did a great job at the Dunn County Board meeting last night. Get that official rather than just off on the side. Yeah. Okay, let's move on then to 8A, Introduction to Zoning 101. Now, zoning is a big part of what we do here. What we have done, it's related to the comp plan, it's related to everything. So I asked Tammy to give us an overview of it. It's a nice review for Diane and I, who've been on this commission for a while, and for new board members that have had different kinds of experience with it. So in keeping with continually piling things on to the new members, let's do it. So Tammy, could you give us a little background on zoning and so forth?
I really apologize. You guys are just gonna get sick of listening to me today. Supervisor Kinnear had asked if I'd create binders for the new members. So you guys have a beautiful binder of our zoning code. And although we don't like paper, we have it online. I'm a fan of being able to pull up my ordinance. I have nice little tabs and quick references. So in my handout to the committee was links to our online ordinance. I can certainly, take the committee through that step, that process. I even thought about doing a challenge and we actually open up the zoning code and decide, is this use available, right? That's the, where our staff often get the calls of, I would like to do this, can I? And our sad reality sometimes is we become the dream crushers early on. And then it's the why, like why is there a no? Why can't they do that? I think that's that constant question of the whys. So just jumping into my presentation shortly, there was that handout that was from the Center of Land Use Education that I provided, but there was a reference to Oneida County in Wisconsin. And this is one of my favorite slides. Simply because historic markers, we don't think, historic markers in Wisconsin would include anything about zoning. And here we have one of the historic markers that actually identifies the why. And really it revolved around the Oneida County Board of Supervisors decided the transportation of children and the construction and maintenance of roads was a problem. And that maybe we need zoning to decide where growth should happen so we're not spending so much money on transportation and roads. 1933. Right? Isn't that I pause and say that's amazing, right? These are decisions that our government our local government at that time said, hey, we need to think about where growth is happening and what the cost is to our communities. The next part of this slide is just, I probably could put it in a presentation mode, huh? Maybe make it a little larger. You hear police powers, and police powers is that language that gives us the authority to regulate how land is used and developed. And again, it's the zoning is meant to balance, right? Property rights with the rights of the general public's health, safety, orderly development, living in the environment, so on. And I mean, it's just, I know it's filled with a lot of words, but ultimately this is zoning is what implements our vision, right? So we have a comp plan that sets the vision. Zoning is implementing that vision. So that's why I keep challenging. What's our vision for Dunn County in the future? Public health, safety, welfare, always those catch-alls. Natural resource protection, protection of investments, aesthetics. You will hear through our comprehensive plan, the public input said real character was important. What is real character? What does that mean to everyone? So comprehensive plan, as I stated, is that vision. We adopt that. That sets the direction for our land use decisions. I just wanted to capture unzoned townships. So if they do not fall under county zoning, there's still other zoning. I'm not going to dive into shoreland, floodplain, which are overlay zoning districts. Sanitation is another one. It applies no matter what the zoning is in the township. It's an overlay. So whatever is under the base applies in addition to that overlay. Additional projects that the county can review as a highway department, if there's an access off a highway department or off a highway road in an unzoned township, they would have authority to review that use. And then there's this. A few weeks ago, Dan Dunbar had sent out an email to in his Friday updates about the why, right? The why of zoning, what we're trying to accomplish. So Chapter 13 right in front of you. This is what the county said it established back in 2014 is the purpose, right? We promote public health and safety, planned orderly development. This list, I'm not going to bore you listening to me, but this is the list of our purpose statement. So when we look at uses, as a zoning administrator, as uses come in front of, these are my guidelines, right? This is, do I feel a use is following these? In addition to our Board of Adjustment, when this committee hears a rezone request, these are the whys that we have to make sure we're keeps us in check of our decisions. What does this mean, right? Or so who does what, right? The state legislature gave the powers, county board adopts ordinances, this committee recommends the policies, the language in them, the planning and land use division administers them. We have a board of adjustment who does the conditional uses, variances, appeals. I'll dig into them later. And our town boards who are under county zoning do have a role. Some towns adopt a comprehensive plan. Some towns adopt the county's comprehensive plan. There's two options there. If they have a comprehensive plan, they can also have the option to have local review and input on a rezone specifically at the county. As I highlighted, the types of decisions. So legislative, that's, coming back to the county board. That's those rezones. So I want to rezone my farmland to commercial. That would come in front of the committee onto the county board. We call the quasi judicial. That is our board of adjustment, right? They act like a court and hear the facts of a case, and they have to have evidence in order to make their decision following standards that are defined in the ordinance. And then finally, we have the administrative. So that's what my department handles, those administrative permitted uses in the ordinance. So just for an example, we want to add campgrounds. We do have campgrounds now, but we want to change campgrounds and how they're addressed. That will come to the committee, those text amendments, and then on to the county board. Same as the map amendment. I will dig into the zoning districts again. There is a nice little sheet in your ordinance that I printed off that covers the different zoning districts. So if I want to go from a GA, which is our general agriculture district, to commercial, again, this comes to the committee. It's interchangeable. When I say a map amendment, those are the maps that are adopted. And then the committee then is reviewing them to amend those maps. That is done by an ordinance and has to go through public hearing and county board approval. Conditional use permit, so let's say someone wants to have a contractor storage yard on a parcel. I stand corrected, this is not PR&D committee. That is board of adjustment there. Variances, so I referenced earlier in the committee or earlier in my staff report about variances. That's typically a setback. You'll hear references to a use variance. Dunn County did a very good job in our ordinance that says use variances are not an option, right? So there's some loose language and I should be careful not to even say loose language, but there's some interpretation of what a variance could be related to uses. Thankfully, we don't have to deal with that here. It's strictly to setbacks, typically for structures, minimum lot size, some items related to that. And then there's administrative appeal. So I make a decision on the ordinance. I interpret the ordinance a certain way, and someone can challenge my decision. And that would then go to the Board of Adjustment also. So here's the great laundry list of uses. And I feel like, okay, so this is where I kind of get excited because comp plan is going to get changed and we're going to start talking different zoning districts. So I'm just going to get everyone comfortable talking about R1, R2, R3. And I really hope we get to talk about changing some of these districts in the future. But for now, again, R1 is kind of your single family dwelling, kind of a general low density residential area. R2, R3 just progressively gets more intense as those uses go. Dunn County is unique where we have farmland preservation certified districts. So our IA and PA, intensive ag and primary ag, are considered farmland preservation certified districts. That also goes through a review with the Department of Ag, Trade and Consumer Protection. It's a whole nother fun layer of zoning that we get to deal with. And then we have our general agriculture district. This right now is our, what I would say is our catch-all district. And I'll share more stats about this later. In addition to limited commercial, general commercial, light industrial, heavy industrial, a shoreline rec district, a conservancy, and then finally a non-metallic mining overlay. Dunn County did a good job when there was the concerns about intensive mining occurring, that they, instead of rezoning to heavy industrial use for mine operations, they chose to come up with an overlay district, meaning that we're not zoning a 200-acre mine to industrial. Instead, they go to an overlay. Once that mine is done, they revert back to that base zoning. You'll hear me reference this. I think that's a very smart zoning tool, is an overlay versus saying we're going to rezone. Because once we rezone to another use, you usually don't go back. And any use in that district then is forever.
Do you see the same thing with data centers or solar projects or things like that? Overlay districts down the road?
I think that would be something the committee really should consider, right? Based on that scale, right? Maybe there's a certain scale that we feel comfortable with, just like non-metallic mining is, right? There's a scale of sand mines or sand and gravel mining that we're okay with. But once it gets to a bigger scale, then maybe they need to go to an overlay. I think it's a great tool. I would.
And we'll be discussing that perhaps a little later on in the agenda too.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So, and I would recommend that, again, those are the things, one, we can recapture in our comp plan. And then two, really recognizing it's any intense overlay. Maybe it's not just we take the non-metallic mining overlay and revamp it to say just any industrial scale overlay, for example. Permitted, conditional, prohibited, right? So I really want to stress this right now is if in our ordinance, how we interpret it, if it's listed as a permitted use, it's permitted. We do land use permits through the county here. Conditional use, it spells them out. You will hear interchangeable, conditional use, special exception. So currently in our ordinance, it refers to them as special exception. They're interchangeable, conditional use. Just modern language now refers to them as conditional uses. They're synonymous for right now. We'll just kind of, if you want to correct me, but I will probably say conditional use one moment and say special exception the next. But ultimately, we hopefully will fix that in an ordinance amendment in the future. And then finally, I would say prohibited. If it's not listed in that district, I would say it's prohibited, right? Then the next option is to apply for a rezone. There is some, again, like I mentioned probably at the last committee meeting, there's just at the discretion of the zoning administrator. Dunn County did put some nice language in at my discretion. If I think it's close to a similar use that's not, specifically spelled out, I could have that discretion to allow it to be a special exception or permitted. But that's that I very rarely exercise that authority. How's everyone doing? Okay. I'm diving into the GA district, our general ag district. And not that I expect us to read all of this. And I want to just be out of respect to how we get to this point. And I've shared like the history of zoning code, right, as they progress. A lot of the language in this ordinance carries through. So this is 1993 ordinance. It's very similar. So in the future, I really hope to challenge the structure of this ordinance because times change, right? The way things were in 93 kind of probably aren't the same today. And that's where we need to, I hope to have that, vision and the comp plan that we're willing to have these conversations more often versus 10, 20 years later. Can we have these check-ins once a year, once every other year? I don't know, but ultimately, outdated ordinances make it challenging. And so, for example, in the general agriculture district, I first just want to say there's a purpose. The purpose statement is our guidance to what we think the vision of that district is. The district preserves the county's natural resource and open spaces and recognizes the importance of historic agricultural structures. But then it says, we got establishes areas where agricultural uses, commercial uses, serving agricultural and residential uses may be located. It's a law. What's a commercial uses? Also agricultural uses. There's a lot in that. And the way the ordinance is structured, it also refers back to other districts. So when we say the IA and PA, so everything that's allowed in that intensive ag district, the primary ag district, as far as principal uses, are also in our general ag district. So we can have public parks, we can have governmental uses, we can have rest homes, nursing homes. That's a great example of we don't use rest homes and nursing homes anymore. The language has changed. Religious activities, schools, cemeteries, single-family dwelling, seed sales. Yep.
Just to clarify, you said everything that's in intensive ag is in general ag, but everything that's in general ag is in intensive ag, right? Or am I?
Nope. And great questions, and we probably can pull up the ordinance too to help explain that better. But yes, right. So I guess we'd have to almost pull it up for specifics, but rest homes, nursing homes that are listed in the general ag district would not be allowed in the IA and PA district. Say that again?
Aren't there things in IA that aren't allowed in GA districts?
There are, but that's typically handled under the conditional uses. For example, a great example is animal units. Animal units exceeding 500 operations exceeding 500 animal units are only allowed in the IA district. So that's an example that would have to go through that special exception process. So as the intensity of land use increases for agriculture, it limits where you can be in those districts, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but that's not allowed in GA, right?
Correct. Yep.
Tammy, you can correct me. The way I kind of think of it is, it's easier to think of with residential. As you go from R1 single family to R2 to duplexes and to R3 to multiplex, it's kind of like you get more and more things that you can put in there. You start out with something small and then you get more and more uses that are allowed.
Correct.
There are
Yeah.
probably exceptions everywhere, but it's just kind of an easy way for me to remember it.
And I wasn't going to go there today as far as residential, but we regulate, and I guess I'll go partly there, but density. We're density based as far as residential. So if you're in the intensive ag or that primary ag district, you're limited on how many residential dwellings you can have. Typically, they have to be farm residences, and then you can only have a few non-farm residents. And that even has to go through a conditional use process to have non-farm residences in that IA and PA. General ag district is a density based where you can only, it's a basic, for a simple calculation, you can have 8 or in a 40 acre parcel or 40 acre, let's pick parcel, you can have 5 dwelling units. So 40, so basically you're taking 40 divided by 8, and you get 5 dwelling units in that 40-acre piece. So we can definitely dive into some of those examples, which I guess I'm gonna, kind of lean towards that because the committee recently allowed for attached accessory dwelling units. So that's my placeholder for density attached ADUs and where that's going to relate later. So my next slide here kind of highlights those uses that are allowed in that IA and PA district. So that's the agriculture. It's a whole laundry list of those agricultural uses, but basically as permitted by right, you get to have up to 500 animal units consistently through the IA, PA, and GA. Once you're over that, then you have to change. Mm-hmm.
It will be really easy to get in the weeds here,
It will
but
be.
let's kind of not, and let's go an overview.
And if there,
No,
and if we want to place, things that you want me to focus on in a future meeting, please let me know and I can prepare, more, yeah.
Sure, but
in
let's
the-
just
the
for now
greater
kind
detail.
of
Yep.
go over this, and we will have lots of questions as we encounter them. And that's the best way to learn anyway. Learn when you need to know it.
And I debated on how I even wanted to handle zoning 101, but I felt like it would be, at least hopefully diving into our ordinance maybe gives it some applicability and, we can relate to it easier.
Looks good. Go ahead.
So back to the GA district, I was just going to highlight the development standards that I just wanted to touch base on. Again, it's a tool to, density is just a tool to control growth, right? That, I will challenge the committee, what was our vision, right? What's the county's vision? That real character is often referenced as what does that real character look like? And are we accomplishing that through density? Right now, again, that maximum residential density, we have to track it. There's these parent tract, contiguous tract standards. I have to say, yesterday, I didn't have 3 hours to spend on this topic, but we spent 3 hours on this topic between Tom, myself, and another staff member trying to understand what was trying to be accomplished by our language in our ordinance. Because unfortunately, we have ordinance language and we have definitions, and our definitions don't match the ordinance language. So it makes it very challenging to understand the intent. So I then pause back to say, okay, the intent was orderly development. So I end up telling people, I think the answer is no, because the intent was to not allow transfer of density. So again, next conversation of things I'd like to change with this ordinance. And then finally, the GA district, talking about special exceptions. This is the whole laundry list of special exceptions that are allowed currently as they're defined. I see that I double numbered some things, but ultimately, so this is where our mining operations come into place, the aggregate mining, agriculture-related businesses. This is the catch-all that is, I quite honestly, is very challenging to administer, because what is agriculture-related businesses? We got veterinarian services, livestock sales facilities, farm machinery dealers, fertilizer, chemical dealers, processing of agricultural products. That's some pretty intense use in the general ag district. And then we have, a different scale of commercial kennels where we see more requests like this, and our commercial kennels are somewhat scrutinized more than we do our mining operations. Exotic animals, thank goodness I haven't had to go through any special exceptions for them. Ag entertainment is another challenging one. And I rely on a definition for what ag entertainment is. So again, I don't want to, put down the ordinance, but it's challenging ordinance. So it needs to progress. And so in my next, presentation to the committee is asking for to have that conversation about some changes. And I wanted to highlight this in the special exceptions. Again, future conversation, I want to talk about what standards are and what state legislature tells us, right? So when we go to an extreme with regulation, the state comes in and says, hey, guess what, local governments, you guys can't do it that way. We need to kind of rein you in. And so when we don't define standards in an ordinance, it makes it even more challenging to say no. I find it very interesting in this ordinance where it outlines special exceptions and then B comes in. All materials stored outside must be screened from view when abutting a residential use. Is that my only standard in the general ag district? So enough of that. Overlay zoning. I touched on this briefly. That's that special zoning district, shoreline floodplain, state mandated. We have to have shoreline floodplain regulations here at the county, managed by the local level. Non-metallic mining overlay, like I referenced earlier. Other tools. Last night a conversation came up about water use. A tool we can use, comprehensive planning, defining our vision. Wellhead protection is an overlay zoning district that could be utilized as a way to, if we're concerned about water quality, water quantity, we can start working at least with our municipalities on wellhead protection to ensure groundwater recharge is there and protect that component of use. Airport overlay, we do have an airport overlay from the city of Menominee. So that's another great challenge for us to remember, okay, we got to make sure that airport overlays looked at when we are regulating signs, for maybe a business that's located in the overlay district or all these other height restrictions. And then what I would refer to as the farmland preservation. Again, another change I'd recommend is that we start looking at that as an overlay in the future, not as just a base zoning. Whew, we're gonna get through this. And we can transition and ask or go through some questions. Again, I put this slide out there quite often, again, focusing on where our jurisdiction is currently in the county, highlighting those green townships. Agricultural zoning, just as a reference again. So we have the town of Grant, Wilson, and Lucas. Essentially all of town of Grant, my township in the, I guess I'm gonna grab even this one. So town of Grant essentially is all intensive agriculture. It's sometimes not as much about, they do have agriculture, but if we start looking at what's actually meaning prime agricultural land, it doesn't hit that. It's also rural character, right? Farmland preservation, that IA&P zoning district are tools to preserve rural character. Is how I would view that in some of our townships. Town of Wilson and town of Lucas have more of that primary ag district, again, minimizing growth in those communities. I just wanted to stress, again, as we talk ordinance changes, to really reflect, capture 80%. 80% of our zone townships are zoned general agriculture. Okay, general ag. So breaking down that land area, and then if I throw in my IA and PA district, we're almost 94% agriculture. So my planning hat now, and we talk housing. We talk that we need to create more housing opportunities. When I have limitations in the IA and PA district, We had limitations on density in the GA district. We're not moving that housing bubble. Currently, so I shared earlier, large scale, land uses, if they were going to exist, they would have to be in that heavy industrial, light industrial zoning districts. Currently, and this number probably needs to be adjusted slightly, 310 acres, heavy industrial currently, 149 light industrial. So we don't have a lot of land currently zoned those districts. So to think that we could have a large data center, for example, move in, one, we don't have a zoning that says they can, or has it allowed use or conditional use in our industrial districts. But then two, they would have to rezone it, and that would have to come through this committee. So future topics, as time allows, I think as a series of conversations, I would take the committee through a zoning map amendment process, explain the process for townships. Townships have a veto power through that. We can go through some conditional use examples. And then I'd like to share some legislative acts that make this job even more fun to show up every day for. And this is just a quick little highlight to just the mapping for rezones. It doesn't even fit on one slide. We got 2 slides for what a rezone process looks like. So.
Go ahead, Supervisor Steyer.
Thank you. Of the 6 townships that are not in county zoning, how many of those have comprehensive plans of their own?
That's a great question. I believe every one of them has a comprehensive plan. Sand Creek is about the only one I can't speak to. Springbrook does, Oak Alley does, Elk Mound does, New Haven.
How many of the townships have police powers?
Great question. I want to say most all, in order to have a comprehensive plan, they would have to have had village or police powers to do that. So I believe all of them do.
Is village power the same as police power?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Supervisor Wilsey, did you have a question? It looks like your finger's ready to go on the button.
Just a question for Tammy. So as you're, obviously, general ag and some of these districts need a lot of work. So is that something that the committee is going to be involved with? Is that something you guys are doing exclusively and you're going to bring to us? How do you see that moving forward?
I think you just teed that up perfectly for the next conversation.
That's a great question. Every once in a while, every year and a half, we go through and Tammy has certain areas she maybe is a little frustrated with, or things that don't work good or aren't clear, and we fix them up. But that's a Band-Aid. And what I think we kind of saw here is she would like to do the whole thing over again, which is a bigger deal. And that is through us. We would say, yeah, Tammy, go ahead and do it. And then she starts going through the ordinance and keeps bringing it back and bringing it back. You had a little bit of that when Mr. Carlson brought in the subdivision ordinance. Way at the tail end, you voted to approve it, and we just did that, I think. So it's a long process, sometimes line by line, but it goes through this committee for sure. Did I get that right? Is that you might be a little bit frustrated with our ordinance?
Maybe.
Okay, okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, thank
And
you.
may I just say that those of us who have been working on housing issues for 6 years are a bit frustrated with the zoning ordinance as well. It needs a pretty significant review that we've not been able to do.
So after the comprehensive plan, where would working on a new zoning ordinance fit in your priorities?
Yesterday. Right away. We have to, in order to, we're gonna have to start right away in order to, accomplish a certified farmland preservation ordinance. So our ordinance has to get certified in order for, those participants in the farmland preservation, who are taking farmland preservation credits. So that is going to have to happen in 2027. So either we take it in pieces where we at least, recertify our current ordinance, or, tackle it in a series. But a portion of our ordinance will have to get, started right away in order to meet that certification requirement with, DATCAP.
So would you eventually be looking for this committee? I don't think we can do this on the agenda right now, but would you eventually be looking for this committee to give you direction to do that?
I would.
Okay, I would
Yeah.
hesitate to do that right now because it's not on the agenda.
And money too.
Oh.
I got you guys'
Okay,
attention.
any further, especially general questions about the zoning? I think it was more of a 301.
Yeah, oh,
More than a 101, but any thorough, yeah,
Mm.
thorough.
I do got a question, Tammy. So
yep.
the ones that are not under county zoning, why do they choose to do that? And then the ones that are, do they pay us to do it?
Great question. I can't answer necessarily why the townships choose not to. That really falls on their taxpayers, the constituents that they're representing. And it's off, I mean, I can't say, speak specifically, but I think a lot of it does rely, land in the property rights, I don't want government telling me what to do. I think that's a big, motivator in that decision. So, again, without those townships speaking, or the residents, speaking up about wanting zoning, they will remain that way. And as far as the townships under county zoning, no, they do not pay us to do zoning for them. I do think of it as like a bigger picture though, right? Going back to that vision, I would argue the benefit of consistent zoning is that, what you do in the land can impact the water, and water doesn't stop at a township line, right? It doesn't stop at a county line. And so land use planning is looking at those impacts that are greater than for the public. So, equally, the county can't get out of zone, right? We can't just say we're not going to do zoning anymore. Townships, you're on your own. They would have to all have a process to adopt their own ordinance and start administering it themselves.
Oh, thank you
So
for that answer.
another comment, actually, we do get paid in a way. The levy pays for levy and grants, of course, but the levy pays for it. And I guess you can look at it that way. The other part, I talked to a county board, a town board chair, and a couple of things that this person was concerned about was, number one, when you get into county zoning, it's difficult to get out. It might be easier now with a new law. I don't know how that works, but it's still a little difficult to get out. And secondly, the person said, well, look, we have 22 townships, and we have 5 people in the PRD that's making decisions for my township. And I have no representation, direct representation. So those are a couple of the reasons that somebody gave me why that particular town decided not.
Brain deaf.
But-
What I said was many of those decisions do come through this committee and through the full board where everyone theoretically is represented.
Okay, but this is, I'm just relaying, the question was, why don't townships enter into county zoning? And this was a couple of reasons someone gave me. Supervisor Wilsey.
This probably has nothing to do with it, but Tammy made a good point. Like, I think water quality is very important to everybody. And then Chase had a map of where the nitrates were highest, and I noticed that's where in the unzoned townships, but I don't know if that is any correlation, but.
Yeah. Well, we'll see, but, okay.
All right.
Okay, then, let's see, that would be, 8A, Introduction to Zoning 101 is finished. 8B, Discussion Modular Data Centers. Tammy's going to give us an overview, but, last meeting, we introduced it. Just to make sure that everybody knew that it's transparent and we want everybody to know as quickly as we could. I don't even think of that as our first meeting on it. I think today is probably really our first real more substantive meeting. And I hope after we're done, we can look at the questions and concerns and have a discussion that'll help us focus on what to do next. If anything, yeah, well, that would be a possibility. So 8B, I think it's Tammy again, discussion of modular data centers. And like I said, this is kind of like starting fresh for us.
I really struggle with where to start with this topic. I know Supervisor Kinnear and I had a conversation, trying to capture what was shared, at the last meeting, to some questions that come in, the public comments. So I do hope we can just have more of an interactive conversation through this. Kind of capturing some of the public comments that occurred at the previous meeting is it really just, comes down to a definition, right? What is a modular data center? And so that will be a task for us to decide. I just captured it as a modular data center as a type of digital infrastructure used for data storage, computing, and network operations. These facilities are often constructed utilizing containerized or prefabrication components and may be deployed, over time, right? They're, stationed in phases, for example. So is there a specific project being considered? No, the county hasn't received a site-specific project. Again, the conversation has been with Dunn Electric to look at their substations or in related areas where their power, like Jesse Singer House referenced, is, close to that power source is where they would ideally locate this type of use. Does this discussion apply countywide? Again, that's that zoning 101 conversation where it covers our 16 zone townships, right? We don't have authority in those unzoned townships, and we don't have authority in the city of Menominee nor those villages. So those public comments, it covered that electrical demand, and I do have some follow-up, or information shared from Jesse regarding, their take from Dunn Electric on electrical demand. We also have water use and cooling, the cooling technologies, water consumption. That's an area that would need to be addressed, and I think that's where I would encourage the committee to welcome in the developer or potential developers to kind of share that technology or other experts to talk, speak specifically to a site use. Other topics include rural character. This comes up often, right? The noise, light pollution, the visual appearance, safety and security. What does that look like? And then other comments include start small, but what stops them, right? If they start here, can they keep, right? Are they incrementally, growing? And what does that mean? How do we regulate that? Economic benefits to jobs, taxes. Comprehensive plan, we can look at it. Zoning, we typically don't look at economic growth with our land use decisions. So other infrastructure needs, those are those questions. Ecosystem impacts, again, that what are our planning tools that help us evaluate those components? So I don't know if we want to thoughts initially capturing those kind of public comments. I do have some of that utility discussion, some question answered information that was, responded to and provided by Jesse Singerhouse, that we can dive into the utility component. Otherwise, I would just jump into what I would call like the planning and zoning framework kind of discussion.
Can I ask?
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Where are these power line? I know you talk about they have to have the large power lines. How far do they run? I mean, to Dunn County, to both zoned and unzoned areas? I mean,
I believe
I
power
guess I don't know how
goes,
far that goes.
Yeah, I think power even goes through water, doesn't it? Power lines,
No, I meant the lines themselves, where
Yep.
they run, but.
right. I guess we don't have a map, outside of, great question. I mean, we could definitely have staff spend some time trying to identify or map them, or even work with our utility companies, but transmission lines, are obviously visual on the landscape, so we could get a more closer visual of where they're at.
Go ahead, Dave.
Tammy, the things you have up on here are things that we have control over, then the questions and how you're framing it, because some things we don't.
Correct. I think those are the questions here, correct. I feel like those are those items that we've been able to touch in related land uses.
It really pertains to us. that
Correct,
we can-
yep. I would probably say the closest, going into a relatable land use that covered kind of similar scale would be our mobile towers, the wireless communication towers and all of the information studies that are included with them, kind of follow a very similar framework of questions. So if we wanted to kind of dive in that, or the trend, yeah, and Supervisor Bauer, I think that's just a great question, is understanding the bigger picture of where transmission lines are and the energy, right? I think it's a great conversation, a bigger picture that is related to land use.
Is there any information out there as to if you have a data center, does it affect your TV towers, your communications, what else is out there that nobody has checked into yet?
I
Yeah.
think that's the first time I've heard that question. Great, interference, right? That's a great question.
Yeah, the idea is to kind of have a question answer discussion, anything you want to bring up, and just where do we go from here? Do we say, we could say, we don't want anything to do with it. We could say, full steam ahead. We could say anywhere in between, and ask Tammy to say, okay, Tammy, if we want to do this, we need to know this, and have staff work on it. So,
I think a really good place to start is on the water use, because that's something you hear, just every project talks about it. The projects that are going in, like these modular data centers, do they require water, water cooling or not? At what size do they require water cooling? Are the ones that are being put in currently using pass-through water, or do they use closed loop systems? Are those systems, I think the question you had was, is anything in the water added into it, that? Just if we could, one piece of that puzzle is the water side of it, and find out exactly what the effect water has in these centers, and at what point is
What
water
thresholds? Yeah.
a concern, I think would clarify a lot of things about them.
Is somebody proposing to do this, or we're just talking about it?
Tammy?
There's a company that is interested and has been in conversations with Dunn Electric on a couple different sites, or various sites that, that they have availability with. So we do have a company that is interested, that Nodiac I've shared in a couple, I think my original staff report. So that would be a company. There could be other companies out there, but we have nothing specific in front of us.
Are they interested to the point where they're gonna make a presentation to us?
they would be more than willing to come and talk to us about their company, how they would, their structure, their use, that they would be looking at, their scale. The company is out of Colorado, and, it's probably timing. Ideally, maybe we just do a virtual meeting, invite them in virtually, unless we can actually coordinate schedules to get them to align with our next committee meeting too.
This is just my
Oh.
opinion, but until somebody presents something to me, I think redefining general ag and contractor storage yard is more important at this point than until somebody presents something to us, so.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We can't really talk about water use or electrical demand or any of this without some sort of expert coming to us and saying, this is how they work. What we're doing now is completely speculative. So, I would like to hear from who they are, the engineers, the blah, whatever. Because at this point, we know nothing about modular data centers and don't, it seems to me, have any ability to make any kind of decision about moving forward.
So consensus, it seems like, would be to have somebody come in and tell us what the heck they want. And how they work, and the sooner the better. We're not just the 5 here, it's the public is interested in this particular topic quite seriously, so want to keep everybody informed. Dave?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only problem I have with that is that everyone's different. Different scales are going to be run differently. A modular data center is going to be a completely different operational horse than something that's a different scale. And if we're looking at it from future planning for this committee and how we're going to do our zoning and stuff, at some point we have to get a framework for the scope of what we're looking at and what it all entails.
So does that mean we should continue looking at information and gathering that? Is that what you're saying?
I think it would be prudent on our side to at least try to get more educated about data centers. And this person, that company that comes in presents is going to be specific to modular data centers for what they're proposing. But it's not going to cover the scope of what we're going to be faced with 10, 20 years down the road.
So you're looking at two things, the current and our comp plan. Yeah, kind of, okay. So Tammy, you think you can arrange for a Zoom to at least get started with this particular company?
Absolutely. So, and I guess at the discretion of the committee, right? So our next meeting is July 2nd. We would have, that would be the next maybe opportunity that I would pursue to have them come, or a virtual. Otherwise,
Yeah, that's the sooner the better.
okay.
And you can check on some things like Dave talked about water. I think
Sure.
there's some general information that we can gather on modular data centers that can give us a background at least. So when someone comes and talks to us, we know what they're talking about. And you can call them out a little bit if they're not giving you accurate information. Dave?
I guess, thank you. You have a lot on your plate already. And so I'm just curious, do you have the resources to do that? Or is that something that you're going to need help with, or?
I think there's a lot of resources out there already that we can, tap into. And I think just hearing from the company would be just a good starting point, or a company, and just, it seems like we're still just information gathering. I can definitely put these into different buckets, and tiers, and we can kind of get it to react to. I think at that point, I need direction from the committee and what you guys want, and as long as it's a reasonable time frame, I can work with it.
Okay, but having him come in on the next meeting is more of a, hey, can you do it? Right, okay.
I've always believed that you give a busy person something to do and they'll get it done, but I don't want to overburden you either.
That's good.
That's
fair.
It works
Thank
on the
you.
farm, so.
Yes.
And if it's not the next meeting, maybe the following meeting, just so we get something scheduled somewhere along the line.
Sure. Yep.
Anything else? 8B? I didn't expect a whole lot, but go ahead, Dave.
So, you talked about the difference between zoning and comprehensive plan, and so how does this tie back into our previous discussion on the comprehensive plan and everything that we're doing with that and the timetable that you have for that here this summer?
Well, that's a loaded question. It, how does it
How do you
tie?
how do you put it all together is all I'm asking.
Sure.
This is, data center stuff isn't something we're gonna solve by August 1st, whatever. You're working on a comprehensive plan, which entails all of this. And this is only one component that's not gonna be solved.
Right.
How do you make it work?
I, I guess I'm trying to track the question. I mean, I'm taking it more of like the technical side of not necessarily the workload, but the technical side of how does the comp plan influence our decision? As how I may be kind of running with the question. And I hope that they actually kind of feed each other, right? As you get the comprehensive plan in front of you and be like, huh, if we had the plan say this would actually help us decide this better. Or if we had scalable kind of, decision tools that we define in comp plan, that might make this process easier. So I think they're going to kind of operate independently, but hopefully the process maybe as we go through this with modular data centers, maybe influence better decisions in our comp plan. But it's just all a workload that we've got to navigate to, if that was the other part of it, but.
Well, wasn't one of the aspects of our comp plan where we didn't look at specifics, but we considered large developments or large things like this, not necessarily naming data centers or CAFOs or anything else. Well, so in general, in the comp plan, that's discussed.
Correct. Scalable. I think I'm using the word scalable land uses. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
We have a statutory obligation to complete the comp plan. And I think this committee has given instructions to the staff that that's a priority. And staff is perfectly capable of figuring out how to adjust the demands and the workflow. But the comp plan is the priority, and it needs to get squeezed into the next, I can't believe the next few months, and it'll already be November, but that's a priority, and it is simply a given. It's a statutory requirement, in addition to which we need it. And we need to move forward with it. So if your question is about priority, that's the priority. And the staff's ability to determine their workflow related to that priority.
I think mine was more about symbiotic, working, how they work together and how one affects the other. And is what we're doing going to affect the comp plan discussion materially, or will it be fine without this being solved before that? I understand it has to be done. I'm just asking for what's Tammy's perspective on it.
We'll find out that answer going
Yeah.
forward, won't we? Yeah.
I have no doubt that we have the people in place to do it. I
Yeah,
just
but-
was asking.
Okay,
That's a good question. Yeah.
8A and B. Goodness. Sorry, Jen. Okay, 8C. 8C is discussion and staff direction, Chapter 13 Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance, which she talked about earlier. And as I mentioned, we occasionally update these. And I think of it as like a software update, only this actually makes it better. As opposed to getting a software update, you can't work your phone for a while. So we make some changes to make the ordinance clearer, easier to administer, and that's what we're doing with this. I know you'd like to have a brand new one, but we've got this right now.
We do.
So let's talk about what you are asking us. 8C.
That's interesting. There's a. Oh, he's got it zoomed. Yeah, maybe. In your packet, I just highlighted what I would say is my priority amendments, where I see conflict, challenges for our staff. ADUs being one of them, the accessory dwelling units. Again, just having a conversation. I know it was a challenge to get to have ADUs in our ordinance, so I respect the. Again, I referenced last night at the meeting, 8 or 16 townships. I also have 16 bosses, right? The relationship with the townships I value and the committee and our process. So if we don't have township support, it won't happen, right? So that's kind of the, recognizing that as a key component to maybe hopefully some more education, some understanding of where we want growth to happen and the why, right? That's that's what I'll say is like our comp plan and Supervisor Steyer's comment, right? The why. What is their why in the comp plan today and why? How is it influencing our zoning? That's what is the challenge as we go through this. So ADUs, transfer density, I'll dive into each one of these in the next few slides. Contractor storage yards, campgrounds, I got some minor changes to address, and then some other topics. If I had the energy to go through them all. From a zoning context, I had this kind of in that previous slide. So we, constantly asking that question of what is the use, what is the scale, what is the infrastructure required, what are the operational impacts, the expansion, is it compatible, the community impacts, the environmental resources affected. If I could just have the committee ask and pause and say, let's talk ADUs for a second and density, right? And in the general ag district, our largest zoning district. And right now that ADUs require density. So we want to agree that they can have an attached ADU, right? I can basically do an addition to my house, but I have to have density in order to do it. And so what that means is this, if we look at someone who has a parcel that's 8 acres or less, right? In our ordinance, you're 8 acres or less, you do not have density, right? You have a house on 8 acres. You cannot do an attached ADU.
Because
What is the use?
one residential unit, and just to make sure everybody
Right.
understands, in 40 acres, you could divide it by 8, so you get 5. Now, those 5 could be on 1 acre parcels, all in the corner of that 40 acre lot. The
Mhm.
rest of the 40 acres, you can't put any more residential on. So you're saying like, I have 8 acres, I have a house, I'm general ag. I could not put an attached or detached ADU because that would be another dwelling unit, it'd be another residence. And that would make it more than 1 per 8 acres. You don't like that?
I don't.
Okay.
And it's multiple scales, right? So we're trying to, so comp plan, housing, we put the demographics together. We have this picture that we're trying to solve and a picture of an aging population. Where's our aging population going? And we have more requests for elderly folks who are wanting to build an attached ADU, sometimes in a detached, so their kids can move in and help take care of them. And in our general ag district, we're telling more people no because there's not density. And so, and I do have more examples coming up here, but that's where I'm testing this out with the committee. What is the use? What is the scale? What infrastructure is required? For an attached ADU, what infrastructure is required? That's correct. Yep, and septic. And I mean, part of that is we require them to ensure that the septic system is sized accordingly. So that would get all evaluated and fixed through that. They can do a shared well. Electricity, maybe a separate panel if they want, or ideally it's yep, address that. What is the expansion potential? for an attached ADU? It's, that's kind of more of an awkward kind of question, right? But if it's at a detached ADU, can it expand? No, because we have a limited on size. Is it compatible? That's the big question, right? Real character, right? Density, is it compatible? What are the community impacts? What are the environmental resources affected? I got some slides here, but I'm going to jump ahead to an example. Again, this is that kind of contiguous tract. So we have this GA parcel highlighted. And this individual wanted to do either, ideally they were going to just do an attached ADU. They'd prefer having a detached because people like space too. And trying to figure out how it works. Their option is to rezone. Did we change anything out there by rezoning? Did we change the visual impact out there? Because that's their option. What are we trying to mitigate? What are we trying to control? So I have an example here. And then if you'll learn anything about me, I find ways around the rules and to bend, make the rules work. So the ways I make the rules work, and this is an example on this parcel, they don't have, it's 5 acres, 5.33 acres. They can't have an ADU. I'm going to go to this piece right up there. And I should step back to the one highlighted in blue. That's an open. You're going to see it, aren't you? You're going to see that detached ADU if that would go out there. What if I put that accessory dwelling unit on that parcel there that's fully covered with trees? Would you see it? Is there a change in the impact? All right, what does real character mean? Is it what we're seeing? And if it's what we see, can we mitigate it? Would we be comfortable with an attached or detached ADU in that blue area if they put landscaping around it? Would it change the real character? I'm not asking for answers right now. I'm just posing some questions to the committee because that's the why that we're faced with. And we have to tell property owners no. And they're going to say why. Because we like real character and that's our priority. And density doesn't allow it. But we're saying we need housing and housing and housing.
So go ahead, Supervisor Wilsey.
Yeah, I agree with Tammy. So the rural character thing drives me nuts. It doesn't pay for roads. So, and the density thing. I mean, if we're gonna grow our tax base, we have to have more people. So.
Thank you. Dave?
Thank you. And what is rural character? You know, you can have a really nice attached dwelling or someplace that looks beautiful, or you can have somebody with an existing unattached set of buildings that looks terrible, and it's all rural character, but
Tammy, we just, go ahead, Luke.
Well, I guess my point is just, I think it's something we need to look into changing.
Okay. Could you go back to the slide that has those lists of questions you would ask? Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so I think it's consensus to go ahead and look at this, but this is what you'd kind of like us to look at for all of the different priorities. Okay, so you kind of went through it with an ADU. It's easy to see with that, easier to see with that. That's a good example. So come back with something.
Okay.
Is that consensus?
Well, equally, can I just add, sorry, Diane, help me understand why, or what were the barriers to not allowing, or, the detached, attached? What was the concerns and how can I do better to communicate or explore different options?
Are you asking?
Yes.
It was not in my backyard,
Okay.
almost entirely.
And of course, I disagree with that. It was environmental and putting these things on a 1.5 acre lots on a lake. So there was some other kind of discussion, but we didn't think about the density with general ag. We just said, oh, we'll include general ag. And so we never thought about it.
And we said general ag, R2 and R3. ADUs are not permitted in single-family residential zoning districts. And that principally was the not in my backyard conversation.
Principally, that was the environmental polluting the water conversation on small lots. Around Lake Teener especially. Yeah, go ahead.
When Town of Weston adopted county zoning and Bob Colson came out and gave a lot of, I was on the plan commission at that time. And so a lot of things that we went through and, I can still remember him saying the reasoning why houses were acre-sized lots was to restrict the amount of houses that could be built in the rural landscape, So they didn't have a 40 with 20 houses in it or whatever. Some of the districts are 40-acre lot sizes for a house or whatever, but I think this is an unintended consequence of that whole discussion, and I don't see any reason why you can't have an attached dwelling or something like that we already have the septic and you have everything there already.
But if the house was built for a family of 5, now you're adding 3 more, maybe is this, do you have to update? I mean, or do you build separate? And also, I mean, with the aging group that we're having in Dunn County, we need more housing and you're gonna take care of your parents at home. But I think a lot of them will, that way. And another question is if we redo the zoning, would some townships decide to get out of it so they don't have to deal with you guys, or us, and they'll just do their own thing, They could do that, get out of zoning, then they can do as they please, It's another thought.
And, great. And that's kind of that my zoning 301 in the future. But the townships have to agree. So townships, any change that we would end up doing to a text amendment, the towns would actually have veto power. So if they wouldn't necessarily have to get out of zoning, but they could collectively pass resolutions, file them at the county, and if it's I think it's a 2/3 opposition, the text amendment wouldn't get passed. So that is one thing to keep in mind, is that I think we definitely would want to have, an idea if the townships are against it, and then continue to have ideally, we would be presenting a text amendment that is in support with our townships before we face them wanting to get out of county zoning or veto power.
Are you talking about individually ADUs or are you talking about when we redo the whole thing?
Any of these upcoming, I would say just our initial upcoming amendments. If
Oh.
ADUs became a problem or any other text amendment, they necessarily couldn't get out of zoning at that time, but they could veto it. Yeah.
Thank you. Would you like to go on to your other priorities?
No.
Oh,
Okay. So I hear I have some go ahead with ADUs. Thank you. I'll save you all my slides and examples. And I had some stuff on density and equally related to this topic is I'm just going to ask for some permission to clean up language as I shared with the GA district on transfer of density in that parent tract. again, I don't think the intent, some unintended consequences with conflicting language. If the committee has 3 hours to spare and wants to really dive into what we went through yesterday, or I would hope that if I could just say, hey, there's some challenges with this, and I'd like to bring forward some amendments related to transfer of density and contiguous tract language. If that's,
Okay, just to make sure, understand the transfer density, the owner on the left, whatever color that is, the darker color, purple,
yep,
they could say, I'm not going to put any houses on my property. I've got 40 acres. And I'm going to give my neighbor my density. I will never put any more residential on there, but my neighbor can use them. And that's why you see the 10 different lots over there. I don't know how many acres are there, but the idea is that you can give somebody that and maybe sell it to them. Who knows? And you'd like to clean that up.
I would like to.
Any problems? Yeah, go for it.
Perfect. Okay, then I'll spare those examples. Next topic, contractor storage yard. I have several properties example of this. We recently had a site in the town of Tainter. We had one down in the town of Peru. Through a land division, recently that was proposed, that was a very old mining operation. Now a family member wants to use it to store some construction equipment. In that example, the town of Peru, and I can pull up these sites too, but basically it's, 6 acres that would technically have to get rezoned to commercial in order to have a contractor storage yard. So another one in the town of Tainter, they cleaned up a property and operating as a staging for their equipment. And I go back to the scale of things, right? So we, in agricultural, if you think, go back to when I highlighted the agricultural uses, and it said agriculture related businesses, seed sales to, fertilizer storage, right? The scale is allowed for if it's an agricultural, but if I'm a contractor, excavator, I have to zone to commercial if I'm going to stage some materials in my, 7 acres on my property. So I'm, bringing forward to the conversation of the committee if we could explore perhaps as a conditional use, or again, that scalable size component to having contractor storage yards in, our general ag district and perhaps other related districts if they so choose.
Sounds good.
And again, going back to those questions, I just highlighted, like, what are we trying to do, right? What's the conflict? We can put standards in the ordinance. We can say it's neat and orderly manner. Here's our limits, time frames, lighting, screening. Those are those components that we can mitigate through a zoning ordinance. And instead, alternatively, again, zoning something commercial. And once it's commercial, I can pull up Cedar Falls right now and show you all the commercial zone parcels in a residential neighborhood. And that was because we took a comp plan and said, that looks like a commercial use, that looks like a commercial use, that looks like commercial use. So we just put them commercial. And once they go commercial, we don't have as many standards because it became a permit by right. So there's my little.
Are we agreeing too quickly?
Oh, yes. Okay. I'm moving on. Thank you.
No, I'm not giving you a hard time, but
Oh,
I'm
I'm
just,
impressed. Thanks.
you had a lot of slides for us in case we weren't going to listen. Go ahead, Supervisor Wilsey.
Just real curious, Tammy, what time frame are you thinking about?
Because I guess that would be a great question as far as time frame to bring back some changes. I think I'm going to have to ask the committee too what and how you're going to want to see that. Kind of the format. I'm envisioning a track changes and kind of just dive right into the ordinance, or do you want I mean, there's many different approaches, so
Yeah.
one topic at a time, multiple ones.
If it were entirely up to me, I'd say, let's finish the comp plan. Let's give it our attention. And November is not that far away, then we can take a breath and come back and look at these things. I have no objection to looking at all these things, but I think the focus, at least in my judgment, should be the comp plan and what is our vision? What do we want?
Dave?
I guess I would just, what would your preference be, Tammy?
The people I'm telling no are my outstanding violations, you know, again, like the one I just approved that CSM on the town of Peru, and I don't want them to start staging it. Right, I'm a person that's guilty of saying, let's just take care of it. Let's dive into it. But, I understand that's just on my end. I mean, I'm asking a lot, I would be equally asking a lot from this committee if I started bringing forward stuff in August, for example.
So the reason I ask is like contractor storage yards, I think in 5 minutes I can make a list of 30 people that are in violation of ordinance.
And please don't give me that file, or that list. I don't want to do any enforcement.
But I'm just saying, I worry that if we delay it, then those
Right.
people are in violation, and if you get complaints, then you have to pursue it, and just my thought.
Yep.
Well,
If you don't have to go to commercial and just go to land use, I think it'd be quick. I don't know if it'd be a lot to that, or is there? I'm not sure. Once you make a commercial now, down the road, they can build anything there they want, and we can't change it. But if it's the land use,
Mhm.
it still limits them.
Right.
Dave?
I guess the reason I asked what you prefer is if it's something that you can fit in, I'd say go ahead and do it myself.
I do have an amazing team. So I'm one component. I see, you know, our corporation council standing in the back. I mean, they're going to be a key player too as we go through any kind of ordinance work. So again, I can, tackle the easy, low hanging ones that I feel I can, and we can just, you know, I can't promise that in 2 weeks I'll have something, but maybe by end of July, early August, I would have something ready for the committee to look at.
Okay, you know what Dave said, keep that in mind, and we have the priority, you know what that
Right.
is. Things have been in, uh, the
Yeah.
things we're talking about have been there for a long time, so a week or 2 weeks or a month or 2 months isn't gonna make that much difference. Let's just do it right. As far as bringing it back, I always find it easiest if you bring back the actual ordinance
Track changes.
and track the changes,
Sure.
you know, the red, the underline, blue, green, yellow, which, and that,
I can't wait to do it with a 104-page document. I mean.
thank goodness it's not on paper. Okay.
Right,
But,
yes.
so you're the expert. Use your judgment. You brought these up. Have you got the list again? Or you can go through each one if you'd like.
Or if you, I guess the other one was campgrounds. We have a growing interest for what is called glamping. And I'm not saying necessarily we have to just make it glamping, but perhaps right now, if you're going to do a campground in an agricultural district, no matter how many units you have, you would have to get a conditional use permit. I would recommend that we consider again, scalable, maybe 3 units or less, define kind of some rustic camping, some type of parameters, and maybe allow it as a permitted use, for example, and give some different standards to meet. But again, trying to help our economic growth, some interest in our communities that we know are in violation, maybe a little tweak to the ordinance would be suitable. Minor changes again, just things that we passed in, I think these are the low hanging fruit we did approve in our fee schedule. We talked about this before, changing a livestock sighting fee from $750 to $1,000. So we'd make that change. Our minimum structure size, from 100 to 200 would be that. And I guess I would make a case for other changes if I had energy to pull them off. And again, fences, the kind of the whys of what we're doing, mobile recreational vehicles. I think they would just be, again, low hanging fruit that I would share with the committee.
Just one quick question on the minimum structure size. What's the thought process on that?
We were like garden sheds. If we think we kind of went and analyzed like the 8x10 garden shed, and we were having to require a permit for that. And can we revise that threshold and, increase it at least to 200 square feet and not, yeah, especially and equally, I've changed my, how we operate, but previous policies that staff did a site visit on every permit. So it was costing the county quite a bit of money to do a site visit on an 8x10 garden shed. So trying to just be smarter about how we operate. Yep. But generally, I have a good direction.
Yeah. All thumbs up on everything. Come back at your discretion, knowing that the comp plan is top priority.
Perfect. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Whoa, you want to catch your breath yet?
Yeah, I could use a break.
And Jenna, I really apologize for. You have an idea. Okay, I think we can do number 9 real quick and get that out of the way. Number 9 is consideration of actions to be taken by the PRD committee. Review and take action on the final plat of Springbrook Meadows, located in section 15, town of Springbrook. We already approved the preliminary plat. Tom can come up with, but nothing's changed. We really have no choice. Is that right? I mean, I don't want to change, but go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So yes, that is 100% correct. The statute language says that if a final plat is submitted and conforms substantially to the preliminary, it is entitled to be approved. So I have a staff report in here. We all looked at the preliminary plat at our last meeting. The surveyor turned that around. There's some certificates that were added that weren't required on the preliminary plat. So I have that in the packet here. I know it's a little hard to see on the screen, but there's now a sheet 2 on here with some required certificates and a little bit more technical information on sheet 1. So again, we're looking at a 9-lot subdivision plat. The town of Springbrook took action to approve the final plat, and I have the plat here sitting next to me. The town, all the signatures are on it. The only signature remaining is for the PRD chair. So it meets all of our county ordinance requirements and state statutory requirements in Chapter 87 Wisconsin Administrative Code. So I am recommending that the committee go ahead and approve this plat. I don't have anything further to add.
Any questions? Okay. Do we need a motion for this then? Supervisor Barr moved to approve the final plat, and his left hand was just a little quicker. So Supervisor Wilsey, it's probably all that golf that left hand stronger. Any other discussion? All in favor of approving the final plat? Aye. Aye. Unanimous, approved. Okay. We have one item left. That would be 7C, operational planning exercise. Jenna. We could not do it. Let's get it out of the way.
It was not my plan to perhaps assign more homework, but it is an option. My plan for today was you have in front of you the 9 services that the PRD committee oversees. And you have 2 blue Post-it notes. They are stuck together. And you have 2 yellow Post-it notes. The blue Post-it notes were intended for you to name 2 services that you would consider to be a priority to either maintain at its current level or even look at increasing. And the yellow Post-its were intended for you to name 2 services that you would consider for further review. Then we would post them up on each category there and have a discussion about it. So I think an alternative could be for you to take that packet of services that I provided to you, your Post-its, take it back with you, and at the next meeting, we can go forward with the rest of the exercise. Yep. All right.
I think your suggestion is welcomed. So thank you. And I'm sorry that you had to wait. Probably got work done. Okay. Okay, so we have a little bit of homework there. Do that. Let's see, our next, nothing sent to the board. Any announcements? Announcements, a future meeting date is July 2nd. And we are adjourned. Thank you, guys. Way to stick it out, everybody. Appreciate it.